You're listening to the 40 Thrive Podcast, the show created for women 40 and beyond, ready to shake things up. And now, your host, Jackie McDougall.
Welcome back to another episode of 40 Thrive. So you may have noticed I took a few weeks off. There's a lot going on for me personally, and so I decided to take a break. In fact, I was going to spend the summer just sharing the top 10 40 Thrive episodes of all time. Exciting, right? But then I felt a pull. I felt a pull to show up in a way where I can use my voice to make an impact. My gosh, it's what I teach in my Find Your Voice Academy, is how we all have the power to speak up for those who maybe don't have a voice, or maybe who have a voice that is not being listened to. And so I decided not to take a break necessarily for the entire summer, but to do some episodes that are important to me and to what I believe and to the person I want to be. So while you will notice the top 10 episodes being shared this summer, you will also see some original episodes being sprinkled in that really matter to me. The first episode is with three incredible women that I have so much respect for: Rocky Howard from Grown Woman Life, Wendy Roseberry from conditionHER, and therapist Melody Murray Parks. These women individually have strong, powerful voices, but I've brought them together to share their stories and to open some hearts and minds. Now, quick note for those of you out there who are white women over 40 like myself. It's easy for us to hide and to not stand up and use our voices because we're so afraid to get it wrong. I am raising my hand here. I am that person. I was that person. But I know that my platform and my ability to reach people, I have a responsibility to elevate these voices. This podcast is not for white women over 40. It is for all women over 40. And so I am committed to sharing guests who will open our hearts and open our minds and maybe help us see things a little bit differently. In addition to this episode you are about to hear, I am launching the 40 Thrive Book Club this month with an open-hearted, open-minded discussion around white fragility. This is a book that cannot stay on the shelves right now because there are so many people out there who are ready to educate themselves and empower themselves to make a difference. And I want 40 Thrive to be part of that movement. So head on over to the 40 Thrive Facebook group to hear more about that and the discussion group that we are creating. Okay, so let's get right into my conversation with Rocky Howard, Wendy Roseberry, and Melody Murray Parks. Anybody who knows me knows that I'm sort of obsessed with uncomfortable conversations.
Absolutely.
This makes some people not like me so much because I like to call out the discomfort, because I think that that's the only way to connection and to grow through it. And I was thinking, like, who do I know that is the same way and who's not going to shy away from real conversation? So Melody Murray, Rocky Howard, Wendy Roseberry, welcome.
For having us. The privilege of being grown, Jackie.
Oh my goodness, right? Before we jump in, I just want to ask, how are you? Like, I genuinely, and I don't mean it like, hey, how's it going? Like, how the hell are you all? Melody, let's start with you.
It depends on the minute. I used to say it depends on the day. It depends on the minute. Mm-hmm. Some days I feel like Superwoman and I can, leap tall buildings in a single bound. And then some days I just want to punch everybody I see. And I'm just allowing myself to feel that, not punch people, but just allowing myself to be angry, mm-hmm. to be sad, to be disappointed, to be soldiering on. I'm just allowing myself to feel all the stuff because I'm pissed off. I mean, that's the bottom line. I'm pissed off and I'm wishing people were as angry or wishing people were wanting to make a change and feeling that it was necessary. Like I'm wanting people to catch up and run faster than me. And I'm wanting this moment to mean so much to everybody, not just the people of color.
Yes.
So roller coaster.
Yes. I think one note, though, no one will ever catch up and run faster than you. That's just not even possible in life. But I hear what you're saying, and I'm honored to have this conversation. Rocky, how are you?
I think I'm a lot like Melody, right? I think there's a part of me that is really grateful that there are so many levels of conversation and involvement in the moment, right? Like that is encouraging to me. At the same time, honestly, I'm angry. I'm scared. I'm scared every time my dark-skinned, black, dreadlock-wearing 18-year-old boy goes out into the world. I'm scared every time my husband goes out into the world. There's fear. You spend time trying to convince yourself you're being a little bit paranoid, and then this happens. I'm confused as to why it continues to happen. I'm confused that in 2020, we still live in a world where we need to have these conversations. In 2020, we're still talking about things that we shouldn't have to have discussions about. I'm angry that in 2020, it's so difficult to be you. I am heartbroken because this isn't just a black-white issue. This is a humanity issue. And I am heartbroken. George Floyd represents, and his death represents, a long line of injustice that we've seen, and bias and racism and brutality that we've seen. And I am a little bit frustrated that there are, Jackie, to your point, there are genuine conversations that are happening, and I think you can actually heal the world one conversation at a time. The other side of that, though, is there's some very disingenuous stuff coming on where people are just jumping on the bandwagon, people that you've never even seen have an uncomfortable conversation. Now, all of a sudden, it's a social media sensation. They don't have enough time on their hands, so they're going to jump into something, and I am pissed off about it because this is my life, and this is the life that people that I love lead. And then I'm feeling the weight of the responsibility, both as a leader and as a Black woman, about what can I do and how do I make a difference. So like, it's a lot of emotion going on.
I can only imagine. Wendy, how are you?
They've said it all. It's a lot to unpack. And I don't think it's like, if it's anything like me, it's not the easy unpack. I mean, I still have luggage sitting upstairs from trips a couple months ago. Yeah. Imagine the luggage that people are carrying for lifetimes. You know, it's just been a suitcase just sitting there and, you know, accumulating and every once in a while throwing some new bias or something in there. And then you finally open it up and it's like, oh my God, there's all this shit. And half of it's not even mine. So what the lady said, same sentiments. I'm an employed entrepreneur. And so it has been I don't even focus on balancing anything anymore. It's all a juggle. We're constantly, it's a mix of balancing and juggling. And I think over the last few weeks, it's been such a range. Becoming the resident, if I wasn't already, I damn sure am one of the resident Black experts at my job. Every checks and balance, they're running everything by us. Like, hey, you know, can you do this? And you know, so it's a lot of educating, advocating, consoling of others. It's been a lot of that. Of course, the listening and on all parts, you know. And so, and then the parenting, we're all parents, and trying to balance that and check on. I'm from Minnesota. Until I was 3, we moved. My father was born and raised there. His entire family's there. My cousin's shop was right in the mix of where things were being destroyed. You know, she didn't lose her entire shop, but she definitely was affected. And so it's a lot. And to be honest, it was so, I feel like the world had PTSD. If you were one of those that watched the George Floyd video early, as I did, I didn't realize what I was watching. It was something, and I was about to be like, F the police again. You know, it's about to be something. But I didn't read like the caption. I didn't know that whatever I was watching resulted in this man's death on camera in such a way. So by the time I watched it, and I had to go and be like, wait, so he died? Wait, no, there's no way. There's too many people there. It's 2020. This was in broad daylight, like yesterday. Right. And the PTSD set in. I didn't even check on my own family, I don't think, in Minnesota until Thursday. I think I woke up at like 5 a.m, like, oh my God, you know, seasoned aunt over her 60s is there by herself. So it was like the franticness. So yeah, I mean, just to sum it all up, because everything's been said, it's been a lot. it's exhausting, it's tiring. And I talk in my little Black Girl Magic sister friend groups, because I have several of them by now, these little covert operation groups. And we say those things like, I'm so tired, I'm so tired, I'm so tired. But at the same time, we're constantly reminding each other that we can't be tired. We can't be exhausted. We can be exhausted, but still have to continue to educate, continue to share, continue to show compassion and listen, because I keep adjusting this. I was saying I feel a shift, and I stopped saying that because I see it. And I think I'll see the shift. We feel it, we smell it. If you're into astrology, like it's everywhere around. And that's why we have to go harder than ever. We can't say, we've been telling y'all that all our lives. I'm not educating you to go Google. As much as we want to say it, we can say it, but we've got to be like, but here's some things that you can do.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I see a lot of it, a lot of white people saying, hey, what can I do? Tell me what to do. I can understand figure it out.
Right. Well, I can tell you one of the first things that's changed is just what you just said. Just acknowledging white people or saying, or specifically intentionally speaking to Black people, because for many, as a marketer, we get so lost in terms. People of color has been the thing, when you want to mean like everyone, but not really the Blacks. We'll say people of color or multicultural, because that can mean,
more comfortable.
We'll say diversity, because that can still mean white women. You know what I mean? Instead of saying, this is intentionally, right now, we're saying we are supporting Black-owned businesses. We're supporting Black folks in the service industry. And so we're being very, as a country, as a world, being more intentional than I've ever seen in my lifetime.
And I think that there's a genuineness to it that at a level that I haven't seen before, Wendy. I think that's such a great thing, because I will tell you, I'm lucky to have relationships globally. And so I've had a lot of what I call cultural conversations, complex cultural conversations over the last couple of weeks. And one of the things that I have noticed is people who I thought I had some of those conversations with, and I thought really had an understanding of the complexities of being a person of color, a Black person, a Black woman, a Black man. I thought people who I really were in, kind of my mid circle, and I thought got it, I really had the opportunity to figure out didn't have it. And the ability to have some of those conversations that you're talking about, the ability to say, people said, how do I talk to my children? Well, let me tell you, how you talk to your kids about this might be this, but the way I have to talk to my children is a lot different. To have conversations with people who go, oh, like, this is still real. Like, Obama getting elected president did not heal. Like, we thought that was the sign that racism was dead in America. Absolutely not. Like, 4 months ago, my husband got pulled over for what we in the Black community call driving while Black. Right? For no other reason but that. To have people understand that I lived in Florida, and we moved to Florida the same year Trayvon Martin was killed. And so at that time, my son would have been 11, and having to have a conversation, at that time at 11, they're a little bit naive. And he's like, oh, Mom, does this mean I can't wear a hoodie? Sweetie, like, that's one small, let's pull this out. Let me help you. And now that same young man who we have taught to be articulate and to speak for himself and to speak and protect others, I'm saying to him, this is the way you believe you should behave if you are approached by the police, because I don't want you to come home in a coffin. Right? And my son saying, I will not do that because I am a citizen of the United States of America. And if I haven't done anything wrong, I am not going to bow down. And me being terrified with that attitude every time he goes out. And so being able to have those conversations to say, truthfully, Jackie, the conversations you're having with your sons may be significantly different than mine, but let's have the conversations on both sides so we can breed understanding. There's a genuineness to conversations that I haven't seen before, and a true desire to understand what's on the other side of it.
And I appreciate that. I definitely appreciate that to a certain extent, but I will be a liar if I say that it doesn't bother me that people in 2020 are coming up to me and saying, I had no idea this was going on. I had no idea this was a problem. And I'm offended by that. And I'm trying to have compassion. I truly am trying to have compassion, but I'm still pissed when people say, I had no idea this was going on. I'm a mental health therapist and I'm in private practice, but 2 days a week I work in a hospital emergency room. And we did, the hospital decided that, everyone was going to stand on the corner in front of the hospital and do a protest and kneel for 8 minutes and 46 seconds. And there were some parts of it that felt so false to me. And I can't say that it didn't. And I honestly ended up walking away because it felt like some people were really just turning it on because they had to, because it was public, because it was very obvious if you were on that street and if you were not. It was very obvious. And so there was this, I've got to put on airs for this. And that's why I think it's so important that when you hear, and I know we've all heard this before, when people say, oh, I don't see color. That is one of the worst things you could say to someone who is a person of color, because the world sees us very differently because of our color. The world treats us very differently because of our color. So you telling me that you don't see my color tells me that you're completely wiping away everything that I have to walk through. The moment I walk out of my door, I have to behave in a certain way so that I feel that my life is not in danger. And when you think about Breonna Taylor, she didn't even have to walk out of her door for this to happen. The young man in Dallas, he was in his own home and he was murdered. So that's where we are right now, where we felt that our homes, and for most people, your home is your safe haven, but not anymore. Right. When you can be in your yard and you have a burrito in your hand and someone says that's a gun, and then you get killed in your front yard. So I think it's really important that I appreciate everyone diving in and wanting to ask questions, but I think that it's really important that you're not burdening the people of color around you too much. Don't burden the Black people too much. Have conversations, obviously, that aren't about race completely, because we like talking about crocheting and you know what I mean? Like,
I'm sorry, that's where I'm out. Crocheting.
Let's have conversations about everything, not just race. Yeah. Because I think that we're being seen as these one-dimensional individuals, and that's why we are still here at 2020, because we are not seen as people that want to have, big 401ks and planting vegetables in our yard. We're only seen as one thing. And I think people are opening up their minds to that now, but it's 2020.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's where the exhaustion comes in.
It's so exhausting to be like, we're here again.
I think the reason why we're seeing the impact, because listen, first of all, shout out to Sabrina Fulton. Trayvon's mom is a very dear friend of mine. She's my good friend. We kiki and we have great conversation, and she's awesome. Talk about being single, girl, you got a boo in quarantine. No, girl, you got a boo in quarantine. And I love her. So shout out to Sabrina. But listen, I felt the same way when this happened to Trayvon. It wasn't at the hands of the police, but this anger, this outrage. I took my son out to the protest. Like I felt like it, that was like really hit. The difference this time is that white America cannot find any fault from George Floyd in that particular incident. Now, if they want to go through his rap sheet or things that happened in his past, they can pick, but in that moment, in what we all witnessed, you can't say, oh, well, you shouldn't resist. He wasn't. Well, you shouldn't. He wasn't. Well, they shouldn't have. He wasn't. He wasn't doing, even with Trayvon. Oh, well, maybe he shouldn't have had the hoodie on. Oh, well, it was raining. Oh, well, he could have just identified. I mean, he was walking to his home. So, but they still found ways to Eric Garner. Oh, well, he shouldn't have been selling the cigarettes. Oh, well, he shouldn't have. They couldn't pick this one apart. And 8 minutes and 46 seconds is something tangible that we can all stop and actually measure ourselves and understand. I'm paranoid trying to get a shirt over my head, and the shirt is stuck on my nose because it's, you know what I mean? Like I'm that claustrophobic. So can you imagine? So I think that that's what it is, that they just cannot There's no justification here. I've said it from the beginning, from the minute that I found out that the accused cop with his knee on the neck, when I found out they knew each other from a security job, I immediately said, oh, that was intentional. The minute he knew who he was, I bet they have had some beef in the past. Something has happened in the past between them. This was payback. And that's what it felt like. So yeah, I think that it's just the Band-Aid. Talk about rip a Band-Aid off. This ripped the Band-Aid off the eyes of the world. And even the most racist of the most racist can't find fault with that incident. And I wanted to make one other point, because we keep talking about the talk that we have with our kids, and we tend to make it a singular word. Let me just be, it is the talks. It is so
yes
that it's sickening. We have to have, every time something happens, we have to have a new iteration of the talk. Remember when my son began driving, it wasn't just let them know that you're going to, comply and let them know you're going to reach for your wallet. No, you don't need to let them know you're going to reach, because guess what, boo? When you drive, you keep your wallet on the front seat. That's how we drive, okay? When you drive, you keep, and then something happens. Oh, mom, I got pulled over. Okay, well, next time, this is what it's a constant talks. And it's a lot. But I think this time, I feel like again, with the shift, we're not in it alone. My white friends, my Caucasian sisters and brothers they're having to mix in the talk that we have with our kids in with the talk. They're having to almost identify to their kids, like, your Black friend so-and-so is having a different talk. So it's blended now. I saw an article from, I think, a youth pastor who wrote a letter to a friend that he grew up with who's now deceased. And his friend who he grew up with was a young Black boy. And in the letter, he posted all these photos of them as kids. And I think his name was Roy. Roy was always the only little Black, dark skin. Did you see that too, Mel?
That was me.
Yeah, and that was me too. I mean, I lived in West Hartford, Connecticut. All my friends were Jewish. I thought I was Jewish until I came to California. Diamond Bar, and I was like, what's a Filipino? What's a Samoan? Where's the matzah? Like, I really thought I understand, that. And so anyway, with this story, the now youth pastor was apologizing to Roy, because the way that Roy had to grow up assimilating to everything that they did. Roy spent the night at his house. Roy went to his church, where they would come up to him and say, oh, aren't you good for befriending this colored child? Instead of like, oh, Roy, this is so brave of you to come to where no one looks like you. And, and he realized all the times he heard Roy be called the N-word and didn't step up. And so I think that this is a 43-year-old man, who these people are having these things like, oh my God, I have been involved in some racist shit, before. Wow. That's why white fragility is sold out.
Yeah. Here's the thing, though, and I so hope you're right. And I do, like I said, I feel like there's a genuineness to the conversations that I'm hearing with some of the people. But my true fear in all of this is that people just have time on their hands. I think it's a moment, right? Because I will tell you, and I think you may make me look at this in a different way, Wendy, because you're right. People want to find fault, but I think people find fault when they want to find fault. I mean, let's be honest. You could go back to Emmett Till being hung. You can go back to lynchings. You can go back, there's a whole history of these types of incidences, and somehow we've always been able to justify that the person they scared me, like I felt, like I was scared, or whatever the case may be. Why? And the question that I find myself asking myself is, why is this so different? Why, we just had this incident happen in Georgia with Ahmaud Arbery, and you know what? Like, no one made a big deal out of that. Like, why is this so different? I am fearful that people have too much time on their hands. They've been isolated for 12 weeks. They may be out of work. They may feel like I need something to rally behind. And I feel like people have jumped on this bandwagon. Now, the good news is, while some people are jumping, I think that that's really genuine. But, I had a conversation with someone last week that said, because I did a talk, and I was like, George Floyd is one of a list of many. And in this talk, I listed out all these names. And this person, who was white, said, I had never heard of any of those other situations. I went back and looked up all of them, and how can all of this stuff be on tape? And how is it that we've never done anything about it? And my response was like, and I had the conversation because I don't want to stop the conversation.
Exactly.
It's important for us to have these conversations. It is important for us to extend empathy and do education and then pull people out and say, what's going to be your next step? Because that person now being educated had a different point of view. But I'm wondering how you can live in America and not know the other incidences. And why is it that this? And so I hope, even if it is a matter of people have more time on their hands, they need something to get behind, that it opens some eyes and opens some doors and opens some opportunities. And it's so much more than, if I'm not seen bending down on the corner for these 8 minutes, then I'm not in the in crowd, or now my bias is called out. I think we use this word, we soften this word of biases, and it allows us to put blinders on. And we need to own our own biases and the real implication. Bias allowed to grow has real implications. And George Floyd is an implication of what happens when we don't deal with bias.
Do you think that the juxtaposition of what happened in Central Park with that woman with the dog and, calling the police on the African-American man and a man being murdered in the same time frame shed light on what could happen? Like the fact that could have gone really, really wrong really quickly.
It was the perfect storm. And to be honest, she weaponized her whiteness, and she was hoping, whether she was conscious of it, unconscious, she was hoping that what happened to George Floyd would actually be what happened. Some version of that would be what happened to the man that I can't think of his name. I hate that right now. What happened to her. It was immediate. Not only did she weaponize the whiteness, like she just straight up lied. And it's happened countless and numerous amounts of time. And Rocky, to answer, you asked a question like, I don't understand how. I'm going to tell you the answer I've come up with, and I keep willful ignorance. Willful ignorance, which becomes, in my opinion, intentional ignorance.
Absolutely.
It's when I'm in a meeting, at a marketing meeting, and I see the face turn whenever the word multicultural or ethnic, and that's why words change so quickly. I remember years ago when I was working and doing kind of what I do, it was urban. Then whenever something starts to become too Black or too synonymous with Black, they want to switch it. That still means too Black. We're going to move to, it was poly something. Poly multicultural. And so I'm always in the marketing. It's like, okay, guys, so is this the word that we're going to go with that is all encompassing? Because if it's going to change next week, let me know, because, but it's willful ignorance. You chose not to know or to listen to the news the problem with that is there are many that have had an awakening during this time. And like you said, Jackie, yes, that day was the perfect storm. And I hate to say it that way because it almost sounds positive, in a negative way, but it was the enough is enough moment. There were 2 incidents that everybody watched what she did and how she handled it. They could not in any way justify her actions, period. He had said nothing or done nothing. She was breaking the law. She was violating, and he called her on it. Regardless of his tactics, using the dog food, whatever it was, she was breaking the law. And so I think that what's happened, those that have found themselves being willfully ignorant too, but have been shocked by this and have done the quick, instead of asking, what can I do? They jumped in and started reading and educating and bought White Fragility 2 days later before it sold out and got into it. They're absorbing this. And like you said, those are the ones we pull out to the side and we have the conversation and we know we're getting it, because then they become advocates. They can go out and they're more believable than we are. Even if they call us a friend, their white counterpart or their aunt or sister or brother, if they've had a flip and they're able to share that with their community, it's resting differently on their ears and their minds and their hearts. And so
we can't do this without allies. We cannot do this by ourselves.
And I think the way that we don't let it be a moment, that part is on us too.
Absolutely.
We keep taking it to them. Do you know how hard it was for me to decide to put it out there that we were a Black-owned business? You know, the product that I have, it was something we legit have conversations. I guarantee you, no white woman or man on this earth, unless they created a product that was targeted to Black women or Black people, I guarantee you have not had a conversation with your business partners like, do we tell people we're white? Should we reveal that we're white? Right. Or, white women are blonde, or, man, maybe you should go because they should know we're blonde because, people think blondes are dumb. So we won't do that. I guarantee that conversations my business partner and I have had to have, and involve friends. What do you guys think? Should we just, because we're a product kind of, for any woman with, a vulva. That's who we're for. Not a Black vulva or a white vulva, or is this for the vulva?
Listen, I have your product, and your product is fantastic. And it's the best thing that I never knew I needed.
I love that. It's interesting because as I was talking to people this week, this is the example I used, and I wish I had your example because it's so much more powerful. But I said to, in the conversation, I said, so I got into my car. This is a true story. I got in my car and the dashboard said, hey, you had a brake light failure. Now, Jackie, if you have a brake light failure, I'm sure you go, oh, I got a brake light failure. I need to take it to the dealer. I need to have the hubby fix it. And you don't think anything else about it.
Right.
I had to check myself afterwards, right? Because my immediate response, it was definitely subconscious. I pulled into my garage. I walked into the house, kissed my husband. I said, oh, by the way, hon, do me a favor. You need to make sure you don't drive my car this week after dark until I run it to the dealer. Because God knows my husband has a lot of talents. I usually try to keep him away from my car. Don't, it's okay. We'll take it to the dealer. But, don't drive my car at night until I get this light fixed by the dealer. Those are the implications on the other side of the world that I live in. I didn't even think about it. But the truth is, it gives one more reason for my husband to be pulled over and profiled. I live in Florida. I live in the suburbs. This literally happened less than 4 months ago. My husband was a half a mile from our house and got pulled over because, he's driving this Volvo in the suburbs. He's Black man, 10:30 at night. What are you doing out here? And the excuse was that the brake light didn't work, right? And so to your point, these are the kind of things that make other people go, oh my God, I didn't know you had to think about that. Oh my God, I didn't know you had to think about telling people that you're a business owner, and do I have to say whether I'm Black or white? Is that going to impact my sales? What happens if I say this thing? How are people going to see it? Am I going to be militant, or is it going to affect the success of my business? It has nothing to do with how good your product is. Most people are saying the brake light's out. Maybe I don't want somebody to hit me from behind. I'm saying I don't want someone to profile my husband.
Right.
I had a moment that was it was much, much more simple than that. So when the protesting started and the rioting started, I live in Seattle. The curfews went into effect immediately, day of protest one, curfews went into effect. And where I live, there was someone, it was white young lady that was hanging out, driving around. And I saw other people in their cars driving around. And in my mind, I thought, you will not catch one Black person out past curfew, because we know what would happen. And the privilege to just be driving around and knowing that nothing is going to happen to you. Mm-hmm. You don't have to even think about it. You can just say, I'm going to the grocery store, or I just went to the dry cleaner, whatever. But we have to think twice about those things. And I think that is something to keep in mind. Whenever I went to work, it was the day after. Like I said, I only work in the hospital 2 days a week, and I was dreading it. And this is a job that I love so much. And I was dreading it because most people don't look like me. And there was one of the doctors that was there, one of the residents, and we looked at each other and we just did this hand across to each other as if we, you know what I mean? Because we still can't hug or anything. But it was that I see you. I know you're thinking the same thoughts and feeling the exact same pain. And I don't think that people understand what we're going through. There was an article that went around, and I'm sure you ladies saw it, that says your Black coworkers are not okay.
Right. Absolutely.
And as we're having these meetings and we're doing these presentations, conversations and we are, having whatever nervousness that we feel about whatever product we need to sell or new training that we need to implement, we're also thinking what is happening in the world, and it's on our shoulders and it's in us all the time. And it is a burden, and it's, this is who we are and this is what our lives are. But I think that there needs to be compassion when it comes to that too, that we are living and are called to live differently than other people have to live. We do have to consider things that people don't have to consider, like your brake lights and your inspection sticker. You know what I mean? Is your hair done? Are you in the store and you're walking around and it truly does happen? Do people think that I'm stealing? I'm very, intentional about, I've got my purse and I've got my debit card and all my stuff is out there in the open, so you don't assume what I know you're going to assume. And I think that's the thing. You're talking about what happened in Central Park. Let's go there. Let's talk about the Karening, because it's very important. And I think it's important because your audience is primarily Caucasian females. And I think that the power that we women have, I think that it is not harnessed. In so many ways, that power is not harnessed. When we are women are the primarily women's people that are raising children and interacting within schools and taking kids to doctor's appointments. There is power in that. There is power. And she knew exactly what she was doing when she called the cops, because she got in trouble. Whenever they called the cops on the young lady that was a Yale student who was taking a nap in her dorm room, that they called the cops and said she was homeless. They're weaponizing their race. They really, truly are. And so it's such a disservice that's done to all of us when it's like, wait a minute, that's not okay. It's not okay. But we're not playing the race card, because then you're playing the race card. I think it's really important for people to truly understand the power that they have to make things better and to educate themselves and their families and to make a situation worse. And this timing is so important. And I truly believe, and I do not believe that all of these people who have been murdered, not just the three and that are in our faces right now, these latest three. I'm talking, we've got 400 years to talk about.
Of it, yeah.
We got 400 years of this stuff going down, but let's talk about just the recent three. I think the timing of it could not have been more advantageous when you consider quarantine. All of our distractions are gone. Where everybody's frustrated. You were talking about this, right? Everybody's frustrated. People are broke. People have lost their jobs, and they're angry and feeling like they're not being heard. And then George Floyd happened, and it's like, are you fucking kidding me? Again?
I can't do it anymore. I'm out. Yeah.
I wear masks. I can't go to work. I can't pay my bills. And now this is happening. And so I believe, like, it's unfortunate. Horrible things have to happen for change to happen. And I think that we have to seize this. We all have to dive on this and do something differently, do something bigger. We do need to be having conversations, even though it's difficult. But I think it's more important for white people to be having these conversations with each other, to be having conversations with their friends, with their coworkers. Go to white affinity groups. I'm not sure if you guys are even familiar with white affinity groups, but there are spaces so that white people can talk to each other and learn how to talk about racism comfortably. Get your white guilt out, because you don't want to get that out on a black person when it's like, I got to take care of myself. Now I got to take care of you too.
Melody, if I may, let me tell you something why that really touches me. And I wrote down a few things. I had to learn I'm working on my listening, and because you know how sister girlfriends do. We talk, and we can have a whole conversation all at the same time and have gotten it all. You know what I mean? Some of it's in like, yes, girl, and so we communicate without having to. So I have had to learn to start writing down my thoughts, because otherwise I don't want to forget them. A few things. That article that you mentioned, where you're unpacking, tells your white coworkers you want. Okay, so I sent that to my colleagues because George Floyd happened on a Monday. I was in nothing but meetings and Zoom meetings and back to back all week, feeling more and more and more depressed. No one's saying anything. No one's acknowledging it. By Friday, I woke up starting to feel pissed off because, and it was, I guess it's early for some, like our company as a corporation, we hadn't said anything yet. There were all these behind us. I knew that talks were going on and how to do it. And, they were trying to figure out how to do it. But none of my colleagues had said, are you good? Like, this is heavy. Like, I see your face a little different this week. And that Friday morning, we've been doing, listen, my company that I work for is amazing. I have enjoyed 10 years. I have a lot of support. I have tons of mentors there. Our CMO is amazing and they're super compassionate. But they're human beings and most of them are white and they just, I guess didn't know. And so we had, I think, an Irish dance class scheduled. We've been doing all of these things since COVID to kind of like be, baking class and we were a really talented group. One of us is a former like Olympic contender. So she's done like healthy eating. We've done baking, we've done planting. And this particular Friday morning, that Friday right after was Irish dance. And Wendy woke up on some F your Irish dance. I'm not.
Yeah. It was some ish. I ain't jigging today, right?
Like, why is this still even on? Like, I just was pissed. So I woke up and we're all in teams, all these different teams, Zoom, all the different things. So I sent my entire publicity group, good morning, everyone. Just wanted to let you know, this has been a rough week for me. I'm sleep deprived. I'm not eating. I'm not okay. I will not be joining the Irish dance class this morning, so you all know. And I would love to implore all of you to please check on your Black friends because we're not okay. And I left it at that. In the group thread now, not one person responded to the group thread.
Wow.
The text, the private messages,
nobody
acknowledging.
Right. They don't want to say it out loud, but then you get the off. But
yeah. The first one came in. Thank you so much for calling us out. I've been feeling I've been awake. I didn't know what to do. I was like, well, we talk every day. Like I see you guys every day. It was just a matter of, I'm not going to tell you some grandiose new thing to do. That's like, this is what you do for the Black person. This is what you do for any person. Are you good?
Humanity.
Okay. And again, I keep having all these thoughts. The author of White Fragility, I forget her name, Dr.
Robin DiAngelo.
Dr. DiAngelo. She said, like, why are you white folks all calling your Black friends? Like, how do I support you? What do I do? I didn't know. How do I learn? She's like, if you got any form of cancer today, by tomorrow, you and your whole family, your best friends, the sister tribe you belong to, would know everything about that particular form of cancer. Who's had it? What was survival rate? They're sending you emails to groups that they found, people that they know. That's what
You'd be on a meal train for crying out loud.
Right.
They have everything ready. But for this, you need to ask me. So my issue has been, my job came through. We've had a forum. We had invite the entire company, which is a huge company now, come to talk. But I left feeling like my white colleagues were like, that was great. They had Dr. DiAngelo there. They had, we had all sorts of stuff there. And they were like, that was so informative. Maybe it's me. And I left like, why was I there? Who was that for? I have an issue with us continuing to encourage. We must encourage white folks to listen, but we can't stop there. We need you guys to listen and stop. We need you guys to listen and take action. One can't be said without saying the two together because why I want to listen. I, as a Black woman, feel like I want to listen. I want to know how you felt before this. How have you been affected after? What have you done since? What conversations are you having with your family, with your employers, with your lovers, with your husbands, with your wives, with your kids? What have you learned? I want to sit back and learn, but I feel like the world has told white people they need to listen. I feel like they've been doing nothing but listening for 400 years because everything's been super loud, but again, willful ignorance. I want to listen. I really need my white folks to start stepping up and talking. And that's why it is, because I know there's some Antifa and folks that don't mean good, but it has been heartwarming to see the white folks out marching and protesting in the Black Lives Matter, because we need you guys to stand up for us. As well, I'm not interested in getting on and telling my Black story, my Black in America story to my colleagues so that they can feel some sort of sympathy for me. I've been Black in America for the 10 years that I've worked there. You did not care about my story prior. What is going to make a difference now? So that's just, and I wrote down, Jackie, I was introduced to you through my camp sisters from Camp Empowerment. Shout out to Tammy Lita Fuller, my amazing gynecologist, Suzanne Gilbert-Glentz, who I came to a 40 Thrive event. I came there and I was one of maybe 2 or 3 Black women, maybe 2. My business partner didn't get to make it. And I'm doing a talk with Camp Empowerment tomorrow. And one of the things that Tammy and her daughter, Chelsea said something that really hit me. She said, Wendy, I've done so much thinking. She's like, I've read everything. I've just really wanted to educate myself so that I can be a mouthpiece. She's like, I'm getting married next year. She's like, and I realized as simple as this, she's like, I looked at my wedding registry and she's like, I could be intentional about adding, I want China, or I want this, or I want that. Why can't I find a Black vendor to add to the list that might make that? What's the difference? It's just about me being intentional and going outside of my comfort zone, which affects every industry. Like I said, I work in entertainment. Nepotism runs rampant, and people go with what they know. We don't have more diversity behind the scenes because when they grew up with who they know. And 9 times out of 10, the person growing up is a white male who's growing up with his other white males, and somewhat unconscious, because at that point, this person who is in charge of crewing up is that's their job. They're in the lead. They're expected to do that. So instead of being like, let me go outside of the box, they want to work with someone they've worked with. They know their style, but it groupthink. It creates repetitiveness. It creates, us using the same thing and not opening up the doors and opportunities for other people. And then when you do have the opportunity to open up the doors for other people, do you go to someone? Is your mindset like, let me use this time to kind of tap into diversity and do something different? Or are you just going to call your homeboy and be like, hey, can your cousin, brother, uncle come and do the job who looks just like you?
Yeah.
So we need more accountability. I personally, as a Black people, want to do more listening and hear my white brothers and sisters be more vocal about the actions that they've taken.
Well, and just to add to that real quick, I think we need to be willing to get it wrong. That,
yes.
I think, I posted something on my Facebook and I was that like finger on the submit. No, what if I piss somebody off? And like, I don't do that anymore. I don't, I used to be very vocal when I had broadcast where we talked about all this stuff, and like, I was extremely vocal, and then I just stopped. And then I was like, well, this isn't political. This is human. This is standing up for my fellow humans. And I have to be willing to get it wrong. And we all have to be willing to get it wrong, because I'm not in your shoes. I'm in my shoes. I'm not pretending that I haven't seen this in my entire life in those Black friends and other colleagues and all of that. But now is the time to be willing. I just got to be willing to go, shit, I don't know. I'm going to try, call me out if I'm screwing it up. But like, if we're not willing to mess it up, we can't do anything. We can't make this change.
Perfect example. What's happening right now and what's going viral right now is the I Take Responsibility video. And that's not going over well.
Yeah, I know.
I don't know if you've seen any of the parodies, but
it's very dramatic.
It's very dramatic.
Yes.
And I think, listen, I struggle with that one, because it's like, I know some of those folks in the video, or I've been around them, and I think that they're genuinely good folks. Perhaps it's the timing of the video.
Yeah.
Perhaps that video should have been tied to a charitable component that had already been supported by the collective of them. So that video could have ended with, this collective of group has donated however much money and their time and signed up to mentor and whatever. It needed to be attached to some sort of action. I think it felt like empty words. And like you said, it's one of those times where you got to do something and maybe get it wrong. I'm sure I'm sure in the moment where those folks that decided to participate thought that this was it. This is going to be my give back. And I'm putting my face, my name, my likeness to this. And they are destroying it on social. And it's like, that's one of those things.
I have been in scenarios. I was actually written about in the New York Times over 10 years ago. I had a 4-year-old with autism. I had a Black colleague, and he asked why her skin was dark. And I turned to her. I did not have the strength, the balls, the knowledge, the education, any of that to turn to him and just answer the freaking question. Like, I'm a different person today than I was. But that was, and then I blogged about it, like, because I was a mommy blogger, and then the New York Times picked it up and was like, what's wrong with this Karen, before they called us Karen, and so, I got it wrong. I totally got it wrong. And now I work every single day, and I want to have the courage to get it wrong in new ways.
It makes perfect sense, and it's extremely important, because I think that we are in a space now with everyone's got brands and everyone's got this, the followings and everything, where we feel that we have to be perfect coming out of the gate. doing absolutely everything. There are no perfect allies. There aren't, and there are no perfect people that are leading any particular charge. We're fallible human beings, and we should be allowed to make mistakes. But I think and that's where a lot of compassion comes in. But I think it needs to go both ways, where it's like people are trying, and we need to encourage them trying and having conversations. But we also need to do the flip side of it, where we're not constantly going to those people that we're trying to be allies for and asking them to pat us on the head for what new thing that we're doing. That also needs to not happen. But I think that we do need to be encouraging ourselves to come out of our comfort zone, be able to make mistakes. We are human beings. We're going to mess up doing all the things. But I think that that's where intention comes in. If we've got a sincere and genuine heart, I think that counts for so much. So much, because I do want this to keep going. I want this momentum to keep going, to have real change, because the bottom line is we as Black people have been talking about this for 400 years. We've had very little movement. White people have so much power. Please use it. Please use it to help the people that are around you. Please use it, because you really can make major things happen. And we know that. We all know that. We can't act as if we don't. So use your power and try and fumble and read and have conversations, please, because we need you.
Absolutely. And, I was really lucky. I had a ton of people reach out in our organization and say, how are you? How are your teams doing? Right. Which was good, even though I felt that weight, but it was a genuine reach out. Right. And I think that's why I come at this. I'm a recruiter for a living, guys. I work for a major global recruiting organization. And this is why it's so important for you to have a seat at a table, because when you have a seat at the table, you can then inform the reaction, and you can inform how you treat your people, and you can inform the people there who may not have your experience. Look, let me say, I think it's a good call out to white women who are listening, right? I don't need you to feel guilty. Guilt is not a value-based activity. It does no one any good, right? I don't need you to, what I need you to do, and I don't need you to feel sorry for me, okay? I don't feel sorry for me. I get up in the morning, and I do not get up in the morning and go, oh my God, I'm a Black woman, and here's all this stuff that goes on with that. I get up in the morning, I look in the mirror just like you, and I think about, I'm a child of God, I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a leader. That's how I view myself, and that's how I want you guys to view me as well. And when you need to ask a question, if you ask it sincerely, then we will answer the question, but make it a value-based activity. So when I ask you the question, you ask the question, I answer it, then take that as a moment to fail forward, step forward. We don't have to get it perfect. I believe in being proud, not perfect. If you can be proud of the intent and have positive intent and learn from that and take it a step forward, that's what's important, right? And I think it's about understanding how bias is insidious. We bias is this kind of dumbed down word, and we all have biases. In fact, I just had a podcast about the dangers of bias, and when you don't challenge your biases, right? And then biases grow, and then they become this, and then they become this, and then we've got a whole world of people going, how did this happen to George Floyd? Where I would really and truly bet that Black people are going, oh, there's another one. Like, we're not surprised it happened. And I could tell you how it happened. It's because bias became this. And then we turned blinders to it. And we didn't want to say anything. And we didn't want to do anything. And we didn't want to get it wrong. But yet and still, to your point about making it the other way, when I'm passionate about something, I'm an angry Black woman. Like, I now have to check how I work in the world because I am passionate about something, right? So how about I'm not an angry Black woman, you're not a guilty white woman, and we just all have a passionate conversation about how we move forward? That's what we need to do.
I wanted to say really quick back to my colleagues, because this is a podcast and we will, it will be coming out. Let me be clear. Yes, I did have to kind of like shake them. I'm sure they were if I said I didn't call my family in Minnesota till Thursday or Wednesday or Thursday, and I had to kind of bring it, like shake them on Friday, I'm sure they were just in as much of a different type of PTSD, a different type of oh shit, this is about to blow up. Mm-hmm. I don't know what do I do? I feel like they were a little stuck too. And even though every single one of them did respond on the side, they've continued to check in. One of my colleagues said, listen, she's a baker and an incredible one. Shout out to Nikki, knows you are if you listen to this. An incredible. She taught one of the classes that we've been doing, like made a beautiful cake. So she's like, listen, I don't know how others deal with trauma, but I bake. And I'm making some chocolate chip cookies. Can I please bring you some? And any of your friends who may be feeling away. Did I need those damn chocolate chip cookies? But did I allow Nikki to bring them over, to drop them off as her expression? Because we like I said, we can't talk out both sides of our mouth. And I'm going to get to that in a second, because I do want to say something to my brothers and sisters as well. But that was her expression. And I let her bring them over. I ate every single one of the damn cookies. The cookies were so good. But it made me feel good to know how much she cared, because I know how important baking is to her. And it made her feel good to feel like that she had listened and found a way to do an act that was an act of kindness and compassion. And then she hit me back and said, listen, if you have any more friends that are feeling away, I can bake for them too. I can also make breads. And she just listed out all of these things. So my folks, and another one, you spoke about, another one of the side messages I got from a colleague was like, I'm one of those weird folks that just didn't know what to say. I've been thinking about you all week. I didn't know. And she's like, but this made me go back to the time you were in my office. And I said, I don't see color. And you told me that made you fearful of me. I told her, that makes me afraid of you. That makes me very cautious of you. And she was so surprised. She was like, well, why? I've always told that was a good thing to not see color. I said, if you don't see color, you don't see me. Not only do you not see me, you have attached a negative connotation with being Black. Mm. Why? Because I'm a proud, beautiful Black, strong woman. Beautiful. I have less medical issues because of the melanin that I have in my skin than you do. You know what I mean? So there is, it's the mindset. And she texted me and said, I didn't get what you meant. She said, I literally dismissed that conversation and was like, oh, probably might have looked at me as like one of those militant Black girls who just was on some Black girl shit and was like, not really. But she said, I get it now. And I see you, and your color is beautiful. And those are the little things. And then, my job as a corporation, they came through with the big statement and action plans and these breakout groups. I do have a little issue with the breakout groups because they were designated for Black folks. And I was like, I hope these are happening for white folks, because there's not a pity party that we need over here. We need real dialogue. And it's not just we've been talking amongst ourselves. Need to find a safe space to talk at work. That's not where I go to find my safe space. I have those in about 50-11 WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, chats with my girls. I'm okay, with that. And so I really just want corporations for this is another call to action. I'll say for any white women that are really looking for things to do. On my IG live today, we have Nikki Porcher, the founder of Buy From a Black Woman, which is a nonprofit. And she spent since 2016 gathering, resources and gathering companies and brands that are owned by Black women. For those of you that are working in corporate America, like a lot of us, a lot of you guys have charitable matching companies, like the charitable, at my job we have, it's called Impact. And that's where all of the organizations that we can support at, where they do employee matching. If you have an employee matching program at your job, do the research, look at some of these lists, the 30,000 lists that are going on around resources and organizations that have been vetted. Take them in and say, can these be added to our list of employee matching programs so that we can employ? That's a whole nother box that the company can check to show an actionable item in this whole diversity and inclusion, equity, equality space. That's as simple as adding a few organizations. We talk about having a seat at the table. I want seats. I'm on this plural game again. I want different perspectives. I need, a Black woman. I need a Black male. I need a triple minority. I might need a Black female lesbian, that, I need all of these perspectives because we are not a monolith. And that's what we just need. Any way that you can look in your collective, everything that you do around and say, okay, can I expand? Can I do something a little different here? It's just being aware and actually thinking of it. And that's the small thing that you can do. So those are just some actionable items. And use me as a resource. Reach out. I'll point you in the right direction. I'll share. I'm doing the same thing. Listen, I'm doing the same thing. I am, when Chelsea from Camp Paramount, who's very white, let me know that she had thought to add Black-owned companies to her registry. I was like, Chelsea, let me let you know. Girl, that's progressive. I'm a Black woman and I've done registries. I just did a friend just did her baby shower registry. She's a Black girl and hella pro-Black. She didn't think, let me put some Black-owned vendors on my registry. That's not how we all think, Black or white. But it's a way, you've done some digging and unpacking and realized that this is a way, and you sharing it with me now allows me to share it with you. So every time I do a registry of any sort, I know I will have the presence of mind to think that way. But it took a white woman gave me that suggestion, not a Black woman. So like I said, we got to take the little things and celebrate those too.
You bring up that first event that you were at. When I would look for speakers, I mean, especially the three of us are from the TV world, and, diversity has always been important to me. I shouldn't say that. I've grown to value diversity.
There you go.
The fact that I just said diversity has always been important to me is I was full of shit. Like, it came out of my mouth and I was like, no, it hasn't, because I didn't know better, but I do. How does a white woman who is extremely passionate about showcasing, featuring lots of different voices of women over 40, whether they're Black or Asian or Latina, gay, trans, I want to open up. How do I ask for that? So that's where I have struggled, is because I want to go into a group where they're saying, if you're looking for guests or whatever, and I want to say, I'd really like some women of color. I'd really like some Black women and some Black voices. How do is it appropriate to just say it just like that?
You say it just like that.
And that's what I was talking about earlier.
Because that's where the fear comes in.
Time has allowed us. I said in a meeting with my colleagues the other day on an event, a global event we're working on. And like I said, we use the word people of color to be, because that's like the safe. There's a lot of people of color. No, I'm specifically talking about Black women, Black men, Black this or Black that. And you can say that. You can say, I think now this situation, maybe 2-3 weeks ago, I would have said, okay, use a woman of color or this and that and this, and try and hope that you get some Black ones in there and you be like, this is what I was looking for. Be intentional. I don't know if they're calling the acronym BIPOC or just BIPOC, but Black, Indigenous, Person of Color. I've kind of started to embrace that because it does give each of those their own lane. Can Black be Indigenous? Yes. Can Black fit into people of color? Yes. But I think that it's okay to say, hey, I'm working on this. I really want this to be an inclusive environment. So I want to be very intentional about making that the representation is there. I'm specifically looking for Black women or men that have expertise in this area, a Latinx person, and someone of Asian descent that could speak to this. I'm especially looking for those. If you can add some of those into your referrals, that'd be great. Simple as that. And it's going to be those moments. If someone listen, as I'm saying, as comfortable as I'm saying this as a Black woman, there's going to be another Black woman that feels offended. And this is how it goes. I have had to have that lesson. There's some people that want to be called African-American. Some folks want to be called Black. Some people that take offense to each. So listen, we're going to have to just to deal with that.
It goes back to kind of courage of conviction, right? Understand that you're going to get it wrong sometimes. You're going to say the wrong thing. People may not know you like we do, so they may assume you have a different intent. The other thing that I think we have to do is we have to be willing to lose, change, or evolve our audiences, right? And what we say and what we do. And I certainly have been, we've had grandiose arguments in my house about what my voice sounds like as I'm building my own brand, and, what's offensive, what's not. Do it, like, I love a good curse word. Do I curse? Like, do I not? Like, I love them all, as a matter of fact, right? And then recognizing that, you know what, if someone I had a quote on LinkedIn last week that said, I hate homophobia, you're just an asshole, right? And they're, like, I was like, that's what I believe, so I'm going to put it out there. And if somebody wants to turn it off or unfollow me, that's okay. Go find your tribe, right? And I think it's about saying, like, you may say some of those things, you may integrate some of those things, and you may see that your audience changes or evolves. And I think that if it evolves and it's aligned to who you are genuinely, that's okay. But like, I think I would be remiss if we didn't say that's part of the step that you need to take. And I think that if everybody takes that step and says, this is who I am, this is what I believe, and I'm going to hold the people around me accountable to that. I'm going to call it out when I don't see it. I'm going to call it out when I see it. Those are kind of the collaborative, cultural, complex conversations and actions we all need to take and do, realizing there's going to be consequences, but consequences are positive and negative, right? And I think you just have to do what you feel is right and aligned with who you are.
Mm.
I saw a post yesterday that really moved me in a great way. It said, I'd rather offend my white friends than attend a black friend's funeral.
Amen.
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 Isn't that deep?
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. We've gotten to a space where we're so comfortable and everything is so convenient. Everything is right at our fingertips. But change only happens when we're uncomfortable. Like, no one goes to the gym until their jeans are too tight. So we have to be uncomfortable. We have to become more and more comfortable being uncomfortable. Now, we as Black people, we've been uncomfortable for a very long time. But I think that when it comes to white people, like, I had this conversation with a male counterpart who's a therapist, and he's a man that only does therapy for men in groups about anger. And he said this, he says, men don't do anything differently until they're upset, until they're pissed, until they're out of their comfort zone. Mm. And he's a white man that works with white men. And I thought I think that's pretty much all of us. But I think in this world, white has become the default. And so things are very, very comfortable, people in white culture. And so this is a very uncomfortable time. But I think, engage in that discomfort, welcome that discomfort, because that's how we grow. That's what therapy is all about. We go to therapy because something's going on in us internally, and it is coming out in our behavior. It's coming out in our choices. And so you make it's an intentional decision to learn new ways to handle the same old stuff. And I think that's the thing. It's like, this is unfortunately, this racism in America, it is the same old stuff, but we need to learn new ways so we can push forward as a group of people, so that we don't have to have these moments anymore, so that we don't have to have these battles with the people that are around us, because we're learning and we're growing and we're evolving and we're doing things differently. We're doing things better every single time.
If you wonder why Black women have had over the last few years started celebrating themselves and saying, using Black girl magic, you go girl, yes, sis. Like, if you are a white mother out there seeing what we're seeing through these, and you're looking through a different lens in these last 2 weeks, I bet you get it now. We've had to celebrate ourselves. Nothing on this planet Earth has told us that we were beautiful, or that we could do it, or that we were deserving or worthy, except our own mothers. And even then, because colorism exists in our community, sometimes I have my dark-skinned sisters whose mother poured, my business partner's one, and her mother's no longer here, but she poured into her how beautiful she was as a Black. You like liquid gold, this melanin, she had to pour that into her, where, I look at my mom's family, my mother is what my community considers high yellow, very, very light complected, as is my son. who's my son's father is biracial. So my son does have a fourth of the whiteness up in him. And it shows in his skin complexion. But my mother's mother and her sisters all married the darkest skinned men that they could, so that their children wouldn't face the same issues, of not being light enough to be white and not being dark enough to be Black. And so, that's why I'm looking at my magazine rack. Several of them I've never read, but every single one of them has a Black person on the cover. I don't buy magazines without Black people on the cover, just to support, just to help move that magazine on the rack, just for visibility. So whenever, when I go to Camp Paramount and we've done our vision boards, you can guarantee Wendy's going to come. There's going to be some essence and some ebony and this, because I brought them, and it's, that's why we big each other up like that, because we might not see it otherwise. And that's why I have an unapologetic, very intentional Black agenda, Black female agenda, natural hair lock rocking agenda, mommy, support the moms. I fit in so many different categories. I keep a set, tight, strong clique of white women, mostly Jewish, around me, you know what I mean? That I call my sisters that I love and I know love me. I know some of them are probably struggling during this time because they know of me and they're like, I can't be racist. I know Wendy, she's amazing. But they're still realizing that these biases are still in them. And so, like I said, this is not a one conversation issue. For those of you like you, Jackie, that have platforms, I implore you to continue these dialogues, whether you dedicate once a quarter to these sorts of conversations, whatever it is, whether it's, like you said, diversifying your panelists, your roster, which means you're going to have to do more digging and educating. Mm-hmm. Tammy from Camp Paramount said, I had brought up to her, we should probably bring in some Black life coaches. And she was like, oh, no, I've got life coaches and therapists. And she said she had to think about it. She's like, but I don't have any Black ones. Why is it? And Tammy's not, Tammy's is very cultured and connected, but she realized that she too needed to diversify where she pulled from. So those are just little things. This has been absolutely amazing.
You said something about talking with the kids and that it's the talks, plural. And I believe that absolutely. As parents, we know that there's no one talk about any topic. And I will extend that here as well. I believe that this is not just like, oh, I did my 40 Thrive episode, check. I am a woman of privilege. I know this. And I vow to use this platform to elevate all voices of women over 40 and to continue having these conversations, because I don't believe anyone can thrive until we all thrive.
Amen.
And if we're not able to get uncomfortable and talk to our sisters over 40 of all different backgrounds to ask how we can help you thrive, then we're doing a huge disservice. Because I talk about this age and stage all the time, right? How we give zero fucks, or we are most ourselves, or we understand what's important. And what's important for me right now is to use my privilege to acknowledge that I have it, because guess what? Whether I acknowledge it or not, it's happening. Mm-hmm. I can pretend I don't have it, but that doesn't make it go away. And so how do I use that to elevate other people using this platform and other platforms that I have as well? Thank you very much for this. I'm committed to continuing the conversation. We're launching the book club with White Fragility, which I'm recommending on Audible because they're not sold out there.
Right.
I just think that this is the beginning of many conversations.
Thank you so much for doing this. And ladies, I'm so grateful to be able to meet you and to be a part of this. And I would love for this to keep going, because I think that's how change happens, if we keep having the conversation and we just get deeper and deeper and deeper into our understanding on how we can do better in all ways. So thank you for doing this.
I appreciate you, Jackie, standing here with me, standing here with us. I appreciate your courage of conviction. I appreciate just who you are as a person, and I appreciate you being an ally, right? I want to say that to you.
Thank you.
And I know for a fact that didn't start with this incident. So I appreciate you being you. And I certainly appreciate you bringing a group of women together who didn't know each other, who I think we're going to, we'll stay in there with it. Right, girl.
Oh, you're stuck with me. You're stuck. You did not. That's just kind of how I do. Thanks, Jackie.
Much love, Jackie. Thank you.
Thank you so much for listening. I believe the only way we're going to make progress in this world is if we are able to get uncomfortable and have these conversations and not get defensive and just listen. But not only listen and take action, as the lady said. And so I really appreciate your being here today, being part of this conversation. And I look forward to having so many more conversations that greatly impact the world and women over 40 for many years to come.
Spring has sprung, and with the change of seasons, sometimes comes an increase in vitality. If you're feeling in the mood for a little more personal time, may I suggest Coconut. Coconut is all about providing clean and natural ingredients when you're enjoying your most intimate moments, with or without a partner. Naturally safe products developed by people who are obsessed with quality. Get 15% off with promo code GROWNASS at grownasswoman.guide/Coconut. That's 15% off with promo code GROWNASS at grownasswoman.guide/Coconut.